So Jake, come on up. Sorry, you got to get in the hugging space. Jake, like I met Jake, and he's like his spirit is so effusive, and this is Jake. Look at him. He's awesome.
What can I say? Good night, everyone. That's it.
I look for leading men for new characters in movies, and I think we have Ace Ventura 3. Jake is Datakind. Oh my goodness, adding that word kind means everything. Datakind, humankind. It's not human mean, humankind. So he's going to talk to you about that and math, and he's a television star and all good stuff. So ladies and gentlemen, Jake, pour away.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. And actually, thank you, Henry. I'm going to start all my talks from now on with an inspirational quote. That was amazing. I loved that. So it is a huge honor to be here talking to all of you guys about big data in the service of humanity. And I know that everyone here in this room has heard the term big data, but probably regrettably through somebody championing the idea that big data is the new oil, or maybe your business put together a roadmap to help everyone get up to value creation city, or even worse, exposed to these abstract corporate renderings of horrible oceans of nightmarish binary. This is terrible. This is a sin against humanity. This makes it more confusing to understand big data, except I guess in the sense they all agree that big data is blue, so that's nice. But this is a bummer to me because big data is shaping so much of the decisions in our lives and in our societies. Of course, data and algorithms are what drive Netflix's recommendations algorithms that let us make better decisions about the movies we want to see. It's what drive our financial markets, our high-frequency trading. It's even how I make sure that I get on the least sucky airplane every time I travel. Yeah, all these services are available now because almost every interaction that we now make between each other and our world takes place with a digital interface in between. A laptop, a cell phone, a computer. And all of those interactions create data that can help us understand our world, mine new relationships, understand the complex patterns of society and nature so we can all make better decisions. But as a data scientist, I find it a little frustrating that most of our efforts are here. Silicon Valley and Wall Street, making wonderful applications, but applications that make really comfortable lives just a tiny bit more comfortable. And for all of the power of this big data movement, it feels like we should be doing a little bit more. Especially considering, to me, the term big in big data means expansive. Every field is going through its data moment, every one of them, just as we went through the computing moment in the 80s and 90s, which means that even groups like this that you wouldn't think of as a tech company are now becoming data companies. This is a group called Kalimo Salama. They offer insurance to farmers in Kenya, and they do so by a cell phone-based system. As we heard yesterday, most people live on the planet in an area where you have mobile coverage, so it's really great that now they can deliver information to farmers and help them get loans more easily to insure their crops. But what that means is they're creating data with every interaction. They're getting data about who is defaulting on which loans, what kind of insurance they're getting. They have weather data. They're surrounded by data, which means they can now use these same algorithms that we're using here to make themselves more effective, to do more change. The challenge is they have very few people to help them do that. Data scientists are expensive. And even if you could put a data scientist with every social organization, a lot of groups wouldn't necessarily know how to make advantage of that. So that is exactly why we started Datakind. We're an organization that connects data scientists in pro bono or low bono situations who volunteer their time on teams with social organizations to use data to maximize their impact. And really the bulk of our work is actually less around the data itself and much more around building collaborations. Andrew told us earlier about wicked problems. Well, these are very wicked problems, and so we do a lot of our job around the translation, the communication between people. We learned very early that we couldn't just hack our way to social change, and so that has really become our place as Datakind, is this convener and connector so people can maximize their impact, their data. So I'll give you guys just a few examples of what that looks like. First comes from an organization people may have heard of called DonorsChoose.org. These guys are basically Kickstarter for public schools. So a teacher signs on and says, hey, I really need the following things in my classroom. Like here, Mrs. Boston needs a student classroom dissection kit, mammalian kidney dissection bio kit. And then they raise money. People can donate to them to get those products. And what DonorsChoose realized was inadvertently they have created one of the largest database of public teacher needs across America. And they said, could we answer questions like who's asking for the most tablets? What kinds of trends are people asking for in public school systems? The challenge is, if you look in their database, you'll see that this thing at the top is an Apple iPad Mini 2 with Retina, blah, blah, blah. The thing at the bottom is an Amazon Fire HD, blah, blah, blah. And there's nothing that really says these are both tablets. That ends up becoming a very difficult thing to reconcile those two. So we put together a data science team who wrote an algorithm that basically did that reconciliation. And from that, you can now ask questions like how many teachers are asking for school supplies and answer some fairly basic questions that donors choose had suspected for a long time. So what we're seeing here is they actually looked at what levels of poverty in each school, schools at different poverty levels, what they were requesting most. And so what you're seeing here is at the bottom, the lowest poverty schools, the ones that have the most money, are the ones that ask for most touchscreen tablet accessories, and that decreases as you go up until the highest poverty schools are not asking for that at all. On the flip side, you see the inverse when it comes to paper. And here I'm not talking construction paper, I'm talking basic school supplies. Donors Choose had heard stories that some teachers had to go to the bathroom to get toilet paper for their students to write on because they didn't have any basic paper or supplies. And so by being able to look in their database and now answer questions like this and show this, they're now out on the road making policy decisions, talking to schools, talking to educators, talking to governments to see how they can tackle these challenges all together, not through Donors Choose and giving donations, but across the entire public education system. So just to me, that really speaks to the power of the data that these nonprofits and social organizations are now holding on to. I'm going to skip over this next example, except to say that we worked with the New York City Parks Department to help them become a little more effective. And I bring this up because it's not just nonprofits, government agencies could use these services as well. And one of the nice things is the challenge that they were facing was one that this guy, one of our volunteers, Brian D'Alessandro, works with every day at his ad tech company. Without going too far into the details, it turns out that the statistical models that he was using could be converted exactly to what the New York City Parks Department wanted to answer. And so that is really, to me, a lesson that there's so much we're doing here that could just be brought wholesale over to social challenges. And I want to close with one last example from the group many people in the room probably have heard of called GiveDirectly. GiveDirectly gives cash transfers directly to the poor. And to do that, they need to understand where the poorest areas in Kenya and Uganda are. And so the way they do this is they send people out to go look at the roof types of different houses in these villages. And they say, you know, if you've got a thatched roof, you're probably a slightly lower income level than somebody who has a metal roof. It's a good system, but it takes a ton of time. You got to send people out to walk around every village and do these surveys. So they wondered, is there a faster, easier way to do this? So we teamed them up with some volunteers from IBM who said, yeah, you know, if you look at satellite imagery, you can actually spot the difference quite easily. There's some thatched roofs over here along this line, metal roof right here. And so they wrote an algorithm that allowed them to run over all of these images and identify what the roof types were. And if you don't speak predator vision, basically all you need to take away from this is that through a process of processing this image, you can actually find the locations of these homes, and now within just a couple of hours create a roofiness map. I will step away from saying poverty map for very important reasons, but so you can see what the counts of iron roofs are in various areas. And this, to me, this is another great example because this wasn't even GiveDirectly's data. This is GiveDirectly facing a challenge to a program that they have in front of them that was able to use Google's satellite imagery data with volunteers from IBM to create a solution that is now not only valuable to them and where to deploy their services, but could be extended to other groups. We've heard from the World Bank saying they're looking at satellite imagery now to look for these other indicators as well. So these, to me, I could go on and on about different projects, but I wanted to come to the questions that we are here to talk about. And the thing I really want to draw your attention to is something that I think was echoed in Andrew's talk as well, which is what I've discovered is multi-party collaborations are absolutely key to making impact. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited to be in this room. Because it's not data scientists for nonprofits. It's not us parachuting in and doing data science for the social sector. It is bringing together problem holders, data holders. Those are the skills to really make a difference on these endemic challenges. And the way that I think this fits in is that if social media could find new ways to share its data in a safe, keyword ethical way for social research and humanitarian work, we could do a lot more good. And I wanted to speak here on behalf of some of our partners who actually express specific cases of that good. We do some work with a group called Crisis Text Line, which helps teens in crisis. They'll text in challenges they're having and be connected to a counselor. And we're helping analyze those text messages to see which treatments are most effective, how to interact with students. But Crisis Text Line pointed out that Facebook has a lot of information, oops, missing a slide on that, but Facebook has a lot of information about self-harm and may have information about how teens are interacting on their site. So there's clearly a collaboration there. Similarly, a group that we work with called Refugees United connects refugees' families who have been separated. A lot of them are not on this platform, but they are almost guaranteed to be on Facebook. So how could that social network more largely help connect these people together? I mean, in a sense, Facebook is sitting, just looking at where people update their location. You might be sitting on one of the biggest human migration databases ever. What could that be used for? What good could that come from that? But then even beyond the data, of course, what we do is bring together people who can use these skills with organizations. And Facebook, those are out of order, but Facebook is one of the homes of huge amounts of talent. And so what are the ways, I hope the HR team is still here, that people, instead of just doing a 20% project for a new Facebook project, could perhaps be working on one of these humanitarian causes? How could they take part in that multi-party collaboration? So beyond that, I hope that this is something that we can do just beyond being here in the room with Facebook and us, but with everyone in this room. Because as we were saying, it is not just data scientists, not just social organizations, it is companies, it is foundations, policymakers, universities, designers. Everyone in this room really is taking part in this data for good movement. And it's really only when we all get in and start contributing that we're going to go beyond using data just to make better decisions about what kind of movies we want to see, and actually start moving towards using data to make better decisions about what kind of a world we want to see. Thank you very much.
God bless.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Jake Porway, everybody. Jake Porway. We're going to change your name to Jake Richway because I believe that is the way, and it is rich, and we need your perspective. One thing that Facebook wants me to emphasize, and I don't know if I'll do this properly, so ask the team, Kevin and Allison and others. They set up these levers, okay, because they want to access this conversation through what they've identified as levers for change. So you can see them around the room. Data for good is what we're talking about. Then we have crowd momentum, which is the last thing we're going to talk about, and informed citizenship today. So that's the context. Yesterday was what, Allison? The two were connectivity and sharing. Okay, you guys have notebooks in front of you. It's on a thing called paper. And you can write your questions, because really what all this is about is building to a conversation. Again, I already introduced Henry, who started that yesterday. We want to have a conversation that is challenging, provocative, respectful, and hopefully edifying.